One of the trends that I'm personally not so into, maybe you've seen dry ice cocktails, right? Because dry ice is frozen carbon dioxide. It's
I've seen it on
solid,
Instagram.
right? And when you put it in liquid, it sublimates. It doesn't evaporate. It sublimates. It turns back into vapor, and that's what you see. Like in spooky movies, you see all the the fog
It
rolling
looks
out.
amazing on the internet.
Right. It looks very cool. And a lot of restaurants and bar programs and people who do events, home events, whatever, catering events, they'll do these dry ice cocktails. There's also liquid nitrogen. We're not going to get into that. People use that much more rarely. But they're actually quite dangerous because, and there have been cases, well, I'll say dry ice cocktails are only safe to drink and safe to serve after they've stopped their bubbling and smoking, fogging.
What happens if someone doesn't?
Okay, so if someone drinks it and swallows a piece of dry ice, it's not water ice, it's carbon dioxide ice. I don't remember the temperature. It's much, 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 much colder than the ice cube in your freezer. It can cause irreparable organ damage. There was a case in England, a woman had to have her stomach removed. People have there's all sorts of potential grave dangers associated with it.
Wow.
And I think people aren't aware of that. So I try to raise awareness of that issue from the consumer side, and also of the people serving, because it's, cocktails are very much about the visual. And so people want to create, memorable, exciting.
And 10 times that if their cocktails made for Instagram.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about the visual. And so it's not, I'm kind of a party pooper and throwing a wet blanket on things when I tell people, your dry ice cocktails, don't serve them until they stop doing all that dramatic stuff. And so what happens is usually when I see, because businesses or restaurants will be posting these things, and I'll message them privately and I'll give them resources. There's a great website for all sorts of cocktail safety issues, including different ingredients, and it's called cocktailsafe.org.
Oh, wow.
And it's always growing and expanding, and it provides credible resources for this stuff. And so I'll message them privately and make them aware of it, and either they'll ignore me, or they will say, "Oh yes, thank you for that. We didn't know. We're going to, be safe and whatever." And then I see them continuing to do just what they were doing before, and I'll follow up again. And eventually, I might call them out publicly online, at which point many of them just block me, and no one ever really changes their practice. They just keep doing what they've been doing. That said, there are professionals. There, whether people who do workshops or events or things like that, who do not use dry ice. And when people ask them for those cocktails, they say, "No, we do not do that." There's a kosher magazine that wanted to do a feature on dry ice cocktails, and they asked me to write it. And I declined because I don't want to contribute to popularizing this trend. I felt very conflicted about it because I also thought that would put me in a position at least to kind of provide the information about how to use it safely.
Yeah.
But I didn't want really to be involved in that. And so that's another thing. And, the thing is, when someone is at a restaurant and they're served a dish or they're served a drink, they're there with an assumption that I'm being served something that's safe for me to eat or safe for me to drink. And I've heard people say, well, some people have made the argument to me that the consumer should be informed and educated. I think that's really too much to ask. I think the assumption is that if you're being served something, it's ready to drink, ready to eat. Yeah. And so really the safe thing is not to pachka with that stuff at all, but if you're going to, serve it after it stops bubbling. So that's my soapbox on that.